I have a commenter who's written in about him and his baby mother putting their hands on each other. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed therapist. Happy Sunday, everybody. The commenter writes, yes, my baby mother put her hands on me last year and I slapped her this year. Are we able to continue a relationship if we get therapy, anger management, and cut off from alcohol? So this is a great question. So the answer is yes. Couples continue relationships all the time, and it's you know, even in spite of domestic violence occurring, in spite of substance use and abuse occurring and things like that. So people will continue relationships all the time. I know couples that where one partner's been to prison for domestic violence against them, and they've still continued the marriage or the relationship. So it happens all the time. It's less about whether or not, in my opinion, it's less about whether or not you can continue the relationship and about the behavior that you will tolerate and that you will put up with, and the behavior that you exert, and even the behavior that you're modeling in front of your child or children. Because I think that's the most important thing. You have someone, you have a child or children that is always watching and modeling, and whether you like it or not, you are that child's role model of normalcy in how you are supposed to behave and conduct yourself in a relationship, with the mother of your children, with the father of your children, or with men and women in general. So just keep that in mind. That being said, um, it sounds like, you need to identify what the triggers are for the chaos between the two of you. It sounds like you've done a good job of identifying at least one, which might be alcohol. But, I don't know if there's other things that sort of add to that. So it would be helpful to identify what the triggers are to anger, chaos, unpredictability, violence, all of that kind of stuff. So identify that. And these are in no particular order. But number three, are both of you wanting to work on this relationship? Remember, a relationship takes two. Sometimes somebody is 1 foot in and 1 foot out. And so it's good to kind of assess to see if both of you are willing to work on the relationship. Number four, if you both are willing to work on the relationship, you have to understand that, you don't have to. This is just my advice. My recommendation would be to, work on yourselves independently of the relationship. So, she needs to be in her own therapy. You need to be in your own therapy, and really, really being honest with the therapist too, and being open and transparent, and being committed to working your stuff out, keeping your appointments and maintaining that discipline. So both of you need to be committed to that. And so I would recommend doing individual before I would recommend doing couples therapy, particularly if there's been episodes of violence this year. And again, I don't know how destructive or bad the violence have gotten. I don't know if there's any sort of protective orders or things like that, but assuming that there's not any and the two of you are still sort of rocking and rolling together, I would recommend that. And possibly even, for the child or children, if they've been impacted by that, if they've witnessed it, that kind of stuff, it might be a good idea for the children to also have some sort of counseling as well. Whatever counseling that you have, it should also include counseling around substance abuse, since you've identified that as a trigger and or potential addiction for the two of you, or even just, the way that the two of you sort of bond. I don't know if it's that. Sometimes people only bond when alcohol is involved, like they can only get together, have sex, have a good time if alcohol is on board. So I don't know if that adds to it or not, but you definitely need to. I would recommend unpacking, things around alcohol use and abuse as well, and how it impacts both of you individually and the relationship. Um, the next point would be, since the two of you have already, put hands on each other, and I'm just going by what you tell me. Um, you have to understand that your relationship is always at chronic risk. What that means is, you guys have gone past a certain point. There is a potential risk of it happening again. If we're being honest, you guys are at higher risk than, maybe a couple who's never put hands on each other. So there's a risk for violence to reoccur. So with that being said, it's good to have someone do a violence assessment for both of you. But also the two of you need to establish, deal breakers, you know, what's the point of no return for the two of you? And how can we make sure that we never get to another point, never get back to the point where we're putting our hands on each other, and who or what is going to keep us accountable for that. So counseling is a good way to keep you accountable and to assess for thoughts around, violence and things that are leading up to violence, rationality, and things of that nature. I also think anger is the next thing that you may want to deconstruct in therapy. So, what purpose does anger serve the person who gets angry? What is happening when the anger is triggered? And like, is there old stuff? Is this childhood stuff? What's happening? Why does anger get to the point where you then start to feel aggressive to that person or towards each other? Why does it get to that point? And then next, the two of you need to determine, you know, how to respect each other. We need to establish mutual respect and communication. And then also, ways to de-escalate when the conversation or argument is getting too heated. So how can we, de-escalate or defuse the situation when we're both getting angry? So, for example, with me, um, you know, I don't allow people to like raise their voice or call me out of my name or any of that kind of stuff. So the minute I see it going there, I walk away. I'm done with the conversation. And maybe you can come back and pick it up later that day, or if it's not, you kind of have to come up with a plan to have arguments or discussions that are more constructive as opposed to destructive. And a good therapist will help you sort of do that. But again, I recommend working on yourselves individually, independently before you come together as a couple. You said you guys have put hands on each other as recently as this year. I don't know how recent that was, but it's always a good idea to have some sort of skills and tools under your belt. I recommend a period of at least 6 months before coming together as a couple. Otherwise, things that are discussed in couples therapy can certainly, cause you to spontaneously combust. And without knowing how bad things have gotten, it's really up to a good therapist to assess that and then, devise a treatment plan. So I hope that helps. Thanks so much for asking this question and putting this out there. Like, comment, share, and follow, as I know that a number of other people out there are probably going through similar issues. Take care. Thanks.